Today we have Dr. Danielle Brooks and Shelby Norman from the Department of Diversity and Inclusion, and I'll let them introduce themselves. And then they have a presentation for us. And so, like I said, as always, I'm here moderating. And so if you have a question, feel free to either say it, take yourself off mute and say it, or you can put it in the chat and I'll ask the question for you. So however you all would like to do that, but I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
Okay, so I'll go first. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. We are so happy you're here. I'm Dr. Danielle Brooks, as Deirdre just told you, and I serve as the Assistant Dean for Diversity and Inclusion. So what I do is oversee the daily operations of our Diversity and Inclusion Department, as well as work with Shelby in doing some programming in different events that serve our underrepresented students or any student who identifies with any marginalized or minoritized group. So that's what my job entails, supporting you. So.
And hi, everyone. Thanks, Dr. Brooks. Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Shelby Norman. Some of your faces I recognize. So hello again. And some are some new names. So nice to meet you all. I serve as the coordinator for multicultural support in the Department of Diversity and Inclusion. So I work directly with Dr. Brooks in terms of creating and implementing programming and different events that we put on for students. And I also help with formulating different kinds of trainings. And I work very closely as well with the International Student Services Office. So I'm a bit of a liaison between our office and theirs as well, and different sorts of events or programmings that we do. So yes, that's kind of what I'm here for as well, to support you. So I'll go ahead and share my screen so we can go ahead and get started with the presentation. Okay. Let me go ahead and start that and start here. Sorry, folks, I got the spinning wheel of death. It's moving a little slow. Okay, can we all see it? Some head nods, yes? All right, perfect. All right, whenever you're ready, Dr. Brooks.
All right, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So, of course, Shelby and I just introduced ourselves, but we do have a graduate assistant. His name is Jay Anderson, who's not here with us, but hopefully you'll be able to meet him during the fall. And we also have student workers as well that we hope you get to meet as well. So, yeah, you can go to the next slide, Shelby.
Okay.
All right, so as I just said, what we do in diversity and inclusion is work to move our institution towards inclusive excellence, because we want to make sure that our institution and us ourselves are the best representations of our students' interests, your concerns and your issues regarding anything dealing with marginalization, multiculturalism, diversity, and social justice. And the education that it takes going into that to not only move and help our students understand those things, but also our faculty and staff. So we work really hard to create and maintain safe spaces for you all to be who you are, because you may come to tech with several identities, and we want to make sure that we are fostering an environment that is allowing you to express all of those identities and be all of yourself instead of just parts of yourself. So yeah, that's what we do, and that's why that little graphic is there. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable keeping it 100 while you're here, and please know that we will do the same with you. So next. So one of the mantras that I go by and our department goes by is checking your biases every day. And it's one of those things where I've had to have a debate, friendly debate though, with some people to try to get them to understand that we all have biases. It doesn't matter what your walk of life is, what, race or ethnicity you are. We have biases. We just don't realize it. And so now we want to do like just a quick little activity with you all. So if you could close your eyes. I can't necessarily see y'all, but if you could just close your eyes so we can do this quick activity. And we'll explain to you once we're done. So I'm going to give you 4 different scenarios that I want you to imagine, okay? Try to go through these quickly for the sake of time. So the very first scenario I want you all to imagine the doctor talking to a family. And this doctor just also happens to be a surgeon. So imagine right now a doctor talking to a family, and then you see that doctor prepping for surgery. So I want you to imagine that. Next, I want you to imagine the CEO of a successful Fortune 500 company, dressed in the best Italian suit and most expensive that you've ever seen. So imagine this successful CEO of a Fortune 500 company and what that CEO, looks like in that suit. Next, I want you to imagine an Olympic gold medalist who've just won that gold medal and standing in front of this crowd that's going crazy and cheering for that medalist. Imagine an Olympic gold medalist that's just won the gold with a cheering crowd in the background. Fourth and final thing I want you all to imagine is what seems to be a very happy couple, so in love, having a romantic dinner at a beautiful restaurant. Imagine a seemingly happy couple. They're so in love having this romantic dinner at a restaurant. Okay, you can open your eyes now. So, I can't see you all, but I'm curious as to know when you were imagining the doctor, did any of you imagine the doctor being Black? I don't know. I can't see you all, so I don't know.
I didn't, to speak for myself. Everyone else is on mute, so if you feel free to talk, you can take yourself off mute, or like I said, you can speak in the chat, either one, but
Okay.
not yet.
Okay. All right. So usually when we do this exercise, most people always imagine that the doctor, the surgeon, is white. And then we go on to the next one. And we know that we have Black doctors. We know that we have Hispanic doctors. We know that we have doctors of all ethnicities, but most people imagine that the doctor or the surgeon is white. Except Shelby, because her dad is actually a surgeon. Next, we'll go on to the second thing. The CEO of a successful Fortune 500 company, dressed in this bad power suit. When you imagine that CEO, how many of you saw a woman? Dee, did you?
I see at least one person did.
Yes, I thought I was off mute. Sierra said that she did.
Okay.
And I actually did too. I pictured a woman.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Well, I'm glad y'all did. Most people don't. Most people picture a white man in this suit, but I'm glad that you all pictured that. What about the Olympic gold medalist? Was that athlete someone who had a physical disability?
No, I pictured
Okay.
Biles.
Okay. Right. Most people don't, but we do know that we have stellar athletes who are a part of the Special Olympics, right? And they're amazing and at what they do when they compete for the Olympics. But because we don't necessarily um, tie athleticism to physical disabilities, that's not where your brain conjures up. And so the last one, this happy couple having a romantic dinner in this beautiful restaurant. Did any of you picture a gay couple, a couple of the LGBTQ community?
We have one hand.
Okay. They said yes.
Yes, Caitlin says she did.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you did, Caitlin. Thank you. I appreciate you for that. Most people don't. Most
I
people,
actually pictured a mixed couple.
a mixed couple. Okay. That's also awesome. Thank you. Um, so when it comes to that, most people picture a homogenous couple, what we're used to seeing, a heterosexual couple, a man and a woman. So we did that activity with you all just to kind of put into perspective that although you don't realize you have biases, you do. And it's not because, you know, you're a bad person or you want to think that way. It's because of social conditioning. Your mind is going to conjure up what it's used to seeing. And so whatever is most popular, whatever is socially acceptable, that's what your mind usually comes up with. And so it's okay to be like, oh, no, I never thought about that. Well, it's because your mind doesn't usually see those things, or it doesn't necessarily usually recollects those things because that's not what you're used to seeing. So that's why we always talk about checking your biases. Okay, we can move on. Also, another mantra is not only checking your biases, but checking your privileges. Another thing, we all have privileges as well, even if we are people who belong to minority groups. And so it says jot some down, but we're not, you know, in a physical environment where we can do that. So we just want you to make sure that you understand how we all have different biases and ask yourself what you're doing to make life better for someone else that may not have the same privilege as you. We all talk about white privilege and we know what comes with that privilege if you are a student of color, because there are certain things that you're not afforded because you're outside of uh, that group that has that privilege. But even as you know, a person of color, I look at myself and be like, yes, I have these intersectionalities of, you know, these marginalized identities. I'm Black, you know, I'm a woman, I'm first generation, meaning I'm the first person in my family to go to college. So those three things you would think would, you know, set me back. But at the same time, and yeah, they all have their struggles. I also have privileges as well. Um, I'm I identify as a straight woman, so I am attracted to the opposite sex. I don't get or I've never been threatened or, you know, negatively impacted by who I'm attracted to. I grew up as a Christian, so I've never been, you know, harassed or, you know, because I'm not a Christian, or I've never been called a terrorist like some of my Muslim friends have. So that's a privilege that I have. Also, I'm able bodied. I don't have a disability. I don't have to, you know, have people to get me out of bed and get me dressed, or I don't have to look at buildings and, you know, wonder if I'm going to be able to get in because they don't have a ramp, um, you know, for me being in a wheelchair. Those are some things that people with disabilities have to be reminded of constantly. And I don't have to do those things. So I always check your privileges and know that we all have them.
Hey, Dr.
Does
Brooks,
it?
can I hop in for just a moment?
Please.
So, in this conversation about privileges, I do want to, it can be a little bit daunting to kind of think of privilege in such a concrete way when we're thinking about like race and ethnicity and ability status and gender expression, sexual orientation, all of those things. So I kind of want to step a little bit to the side of that and consider a different way that we can think about privilege that lots of people experience, but maybe don't necessarily recognize to be a privilege.
Mhm.
So one way that we can think about that is, especially as incoming students, as you all are, and you are always going to be in classrooms because you have to go to class. Whenever you walk into a classroom, if you're a right-handed person, you don't walk into that classroom and immediately look for a left-handed desk so you
Yeah.
can sit down and make sure that you do your work. So in this example, being right-handed is a privilege. Lots of people are right-handed. I would venture to say more people are right-handed than left-handed. Don't quote me on that. Feel free to look it up and fact check on your own. But I'm assuming that most people are right-handed. And so I personally am. So when I walk into a classroom, my first thought isn't, can I sit at any of these desks and work comfortably? Or do I have to try to accommodate this for myself or orient it in a way that is unnatural for me and uncomfortable, even though it's something that I have to do? So if you're a left-handed person, that's something that's kind of always in the forefront of your mind. If you're going to class and you need to sit down somewhere and make sure that you can take your notes comfortably. Whereas if you're right-handed, then that's the furthest thing from your mind. You're not worried about that at all. So that's another way that we can kind of think about what privilege means and how it manifests in our everyday lives. So it's not necessarily like if you have certain privileges, that means that you're a good or bad person. It just means that you have the ability to not think about certain things and how that might impact your life. So if something is, difficult for you, it isn't because of the privilege that you have. So people who have privileges can also have really hard lives. Not to say that, that's not true. But their lives aren't necessarily hard in particular ways because of the privilege that they inhibit. So I just wanted to give another example that kind of, stepped us away, because sometimes it's a little heavy to think about things, especially right now, in relation to like race or something like that. So the left-handed, right-handed example I always like to think about.
No, thank you so much, Shelby. I appreciate that.
Were there
Okay,
any
so
questions before we went further? Feel free to like just shout them out or throw them in the chat if you have them.
no. So we'll move on. So one of the main aspects of diversity and inclusion for me and for our department is we want to um, always convey a clear distinction between equality and equity because there needs to be that, you know, that differentiation. So I basically answered the question on here. Is there a difference? Yes, there is a difference. And in the work that Shelby and I do, what we want to do is move our institution and other people just in their mindsets past equality into equity. So does anybody want to take a stab in the dark at what the difference is and who can maybe define equality and who can define equity? Does anybody want to do that before we tell you?
I can give it a shot.
Okay.
Um, let's see. Can I just use an example instead? Okay, so actually, I'm using a recent event. So I had did an internship through a local bakery, and the population was majority white. And another student that went to Central did the same one, but because she was white and I was black, she ended up getting it, and I didn't understand it. I thought that I was unqualified for the position, so that's why I just brushed it off. But I had seen some, I would say, like media stuff and facts saying that the owner was just like he really didn't look for black people to be hired there. And so he was just turning away the applications, even though they were qualified for the position or not. So that was one of my equalities, I think.
So you applied, but it was given to someone else.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. And finding out the reason being is that person didn't necessarily look for black people or other minorities, I would assume.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I can see where that could definitely paint a picture of equality versus equity because you did have the opportunity to apply just like the other girl, but she was able to get it because she was white. So yeah, I definitely see how that paints a picture. So you're definitely in the direction that we're going. So Shelby, if you want to go to that next slide, and we can talk about equality versus equity. So equality is basically allowing people to have the same opportunities or maybe giving people the exact same resources, but not necessarily acknowledging that people have different needs. And so even though sometimes things may be equal or you're promoting equality, it's not always enough. So if you look at that particular slide, that graphic on the left, yeah, so everybody there is watching the game, and they all have this box that they can use to help them watch the game. So that's equality because everybody's been provided with the exact same thing, right? But the guy in the red shirt doesn't even need the box. He's tall enough to see the game without it. And then our friend in the pink and green in the middle, yeah, the box helps, but it's still not enough. She still needs a little bit more of a lift. And then we have our friend that's in a wheelchair. Well, that friend is in the wheelchair. They don't need the box. The box is not going to help them at all. So you look at the picture on the right, and our friend in the red, who didn't even need the box anyway, was able to give it to our friend in the pink and green. And now that she has two boxes, she's able to stand on those and see the game clearly. And then they built a ramp for our friend with the wheelchair because a box was not going to do any good to that person. So this is what we mean by equality versus equity. So just because something is equal, though you see it as you see it on the left, does not necessarily make it fair or make it, yeah, fair or right. So we want to make sure that we are operating out of equity, which means we want to make sure that we are providing um, students, people, individual resources that are going to cater to the individual needs because we're all different. So that's what we mean by equality versus equity. Any questions on that? All right. So that's basically what we have for you. We wanted to leave you with uh, that specific ideal is to, hopefully you'll think about those things next time when you're dealing with people who are different from you or other people are, you're interacting with you and recognizing that you're different from them. Are people conveying equity versus equality? And are you checking your biases and your privileges? So we do our best to make sure that we are conveying that message through the work that we do at Tech. And it's bigger than us. It takes DDI, it takes the admissions office, it takes you all to help us move towards inclusive excellence. So that's all I have. Does anybody else have anything? Shelby, do you want to add to that or?
I will add, well, I'm first going to stop screen sharing so
Okay.
people can see me when I talk. If it will work. Yes, I think so. My computer's been doing weird stuff all day, so I don't know. But I will say that if you have any questions that you can't think of right now, which is totally okay, please feel free to contact us either once everyone gets back, if and when everyone gets back to campus physically. We're located in the Doc Bryant Doc Bryant Student Services Building. And so we're directly behind Tucker Coliseum. We're located on the second floor. So if you want to come by and just say hi or ask a question or help us plan an event or be a student worker or any of those things, that's where we're located. And then also, if you don't have our email already, it's diversity@atu.edu. So if you want to shoot us a question, whenever one may come to you, please do it there. Also, feel free to follow us on social media. We have 3 social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And thank you, Deidre, for adding the email there. And what's our official handles for each of those, Dr. Brooks?
They're all at ATU Diversity.
Perfect. So please give us a like, a follow. I don't think people still do the whole Facebook poking thing, but regardless, please interact with us and let us know what we can do to make your experience as incoming students better. Make sure that we are supporting inclusive spaces where you feel safe and where you feel welcome and where you feel as if tech is a home for you. So that's all I really have as well. We were awesome on time. It was very, very brief, but I think it got most of everything we needed to hit. And kind of like I've noticed a lot, I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces. So a lot of this information you probably already had. I'm good. So
Okay. Did anybody have any questions at all? If not, we'll go ahead and wrap up. And like I said, there's one more session after this. It is the A's to your Q's, which is just a general question and answer session like we had on Monday. We had an opening one, and so this will be a closing one. But if anybody had any questions for DDI, anything you want to speak about, anything like that, you all can ask right now. But if not, then we'll go ahead and wrap up. So if everyone is good, is everybody good? Kaylin, you good? How about you, Sierra? You good? And Kevontae, you good too? Okay, so we're all good. And so I want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you again, Dr. Brooks and Shelby, for sharing your time with us and presenting on your expertise for the Department of Diversity and Inclusion. We are looking forward to more programming that you all will hopefully be able to have since the semester got cut short this past spring. So I'm looking forward to the things that you will bring to the campus this upcoming year.
we've definitely got some exciting things lined up. So hopefully we can do that. And we will be able to see you all there.
So true.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well,
Thanks
you
so much,
again.
Deidre.
So we'll see you all later, okay?
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Dee.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate the opportunity.
Yes. See y'all later.
See ya. Thank